Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and it is new project day. Yay! New project day! And, well, this kit certainly is not new. I've had it in my stash for probably at least 5 years, and I actually did not buy this secondhand. I bought this from a hobby shop, but it was a very old hobby shop, and I rather suspect they had it sitting in their pile for quite some time. The F-86D was the all-weather interceptor version of the F-86 Sabre, and it only had about 25% commonality with the more garden variety sabers, so to speak. The biggest difference that it had was it had an air intercept radar, and it did not have machine guns or cannon. It was the first jet that was designed to use the Mighty Mouse unguided rockets, and it carried 24 of them in a tray that kind of popped down under the lower fuselage. And yeah, it was a pretty crude weapon, and from what I've read, not very accurate. But the idea is if you could get pointed towards your target, these things would kind of fly out like shotgun pellets, basically, and even just one or two of them could do an awful lot of damage to an enemy bomber. So that's what the idea was with there. And it did have a primitive computer, so to speak. It was the Hughes Sage system, and I believe it stood for Semi-Automatic Ground Environment. But basically, the computer that was on board used the information from the radar plus ground stations to basically vector the pilot towards the offending aircraft that was invading, the airspace. So this kit right here, it's Entex, and if you look carefully, you can see this weird little happy face in there. And it almost looks like somebody drew that in afterwards, but that was part of their trademark there. It has a sticker on here with English and French on it. That was obviously the way they got around packaging laws here in Canada. And no, this isn't a kit that Entex itself developed. Basically, what Entex did, from what I can tell, is they basically reboxed Japanese kits. So the history of this kit is it was originally released by Marusan and I'm not saying that right, obviously. Marusan in 1963. It was then re-released by Fuji in 1969 and later sometime in the 1970s. It was also released by a company called Sunny Tri-S, once again, sometime in the 1970s. And that's information I basically gleaned from Scalemates. It was also re-released by a company called Arc-en-Ciel in the 1980s. But between the Japanese releases and the one by Arc-en-Ciel, Entex had a crack at it, and they released theirs in 1975. And this is that release. So like I said, this was sitting basically in the storeroom of that hobby shop for a long, long time. Now, Entex did some kind of a real smorgasbord of different kits when they were manufacturing kits, and I know they were basically using everybody else's molds. I know they did a number of British cars. Let's see. I know they did a Rolls-Royce. They also did a mid-70s Mustang II in 1/16 scale, of all things. That'd be kind of interesting. And I've also done a steam tractor, which I am now going to be on the lookout for. The box extols the virtues of the kit, tells you, the basic info here. And the F-86 Sabre first flew in 1947. The Sabre dog, the 86D, didn't fly until 1949. And 125 pieces. And it does say that it's 148 scale, but everywhere I've looked, it basically lists this kit as being 150 scale, which I think it's close enough that you can put it with your 148 scale models and nobody's going to get too upset. There's a lot of play value to this kit in that you can remove the rear fuselage, as you can see in this picture here, and you can remove the engine. It has a little cart. It has, I don't know if that's, I think that actually has the Mighty Mouse rockets in it. And not much different for this side here. And as we look on here, many moving parts. Not planning on having the parts moving. So, now I know some people are going to say, Dan, you're a glutton for punishment. And I just saw a quote. I don't know how original it was, but basically it said something like, there are no unbuildable kits. Just kits that some people feel are not worth building. So, I do own this, and I do want to build it, so let's take a look inside. Now, if you're squeamish, you might want to sit down. We've got the instructions here. We'll take a glance at those in a couple minutes. The decals, actually pretty good. I might tape them to the front window just to get them to bleach a little bit. And I will be putting some of the decal saving stuff on here just to make sure it doesn't come apart. Now, I've never even opened the bags on these. So, I think it'll be easier once I open the bags to show you. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is not for the squeamish. Oh, this is interesting. It's basically a large sprue that's been folded. Look at that flash! Wow. This has to be some of the worst flash I've ever seen. It's actually sheets. Shoot, if you broke that off carefully, you'd have some really thin styrene to use for future scratch building. But the parts themselves, once you take that flash off, actually look pretty good. Now, I know it is raised panel lines, but who cares? So it looks like we've got, this thing here looks like probably, oh, this is the engine cart here, because this has a removable engine. And here's some of the rockets. Looks like a couple are broken. And of course we have the pilots.
Oh, they've encased him in carbonite. He should be quite well protected.
And we've got more on here. Once again, this looks like, oh, we already looked at that one. Oh, no, we didn't. Here's more of the engine cart by the looks of it. More of the rockets. And we've got the tail feathers. They actually don't look too bad. Lots of loose parts floating around, which more flash on them. Wow. We have a boarding ladder. And here's the radome, the pointy bit. Looks like part of the ejection seat. Wow, look at that sink mark on there. Had to be doing something about that. Although, once again, I don't see anything that's going to be too particularly difficult about this kit. This is probably the tray for the Mighty Mouse rockets. Let's get a few more sprues out here. So we've got, this is part of the rear fuselage. We've got some drop tanks, which look like they're about to drop off the sprue. And you know what? This thing has been in the box rattling around since 1975. So I'm willing to cut it some slack for things falling off the sprues. And even in 1975, these were not new molds. Here's the underside of the wing, and once you ignore the flash, which once again, that'll come off really easy. It does have some nice detail on it. Probably completely wrong. But, oh well. This is a hobby. We are supposed to be having fun. We've got the upper wings. They don't look too bad either. Once again, raised panel lines, not the end of the world. One half of the front fuselage. And then we've got the other half of the front fuselage. And then we've got some engine parts here. They don't look too bad either. And the canopy has been rattling around loose for, over 40 years. Although it doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look like it got horribly damaged or mutilated, so that's a good thing. Here's the other side of the tail assembly, and once again we have very large blobs of flash. I think maybe I'm going to nickname this kit Flash Gordon. I'm building Flash Gordon. And there's the windscreen. So here's a quick look at the instructions. And once again, we've got a little blurb giving you the history of the Sabre dog and some painting instructions, journal information. Please don't eat the parts. And then I guess we start here on the nose of all things. Wow, it's a little different. Daring. And step number 2 is the cockpit, and it looks like it comes together over the air duct, which is kind of nice. I mean, actually, this kit certainly isn't just basically a tube that you're going to be able to see through. I mean, they've gone and molded all of the ducting in by the looks of it. As you can see here, there's more ducting for the engine. And then if we've got step number 4 here. And I may change my mind, but I'm going to warn people right now. What I'm probably going to do is I'm probably not going to have the tail removable. I think I'm going to build the fuselage all together, and I'll copy any parts that I might need that still have to go into the plane, but I think I'm going to have a spare engine basically sitting on the engine cart. Basically what I did with that Aurora engine I did about a couple years ago, and what Natasha has done with the engine from her Blue Angels. You can see more of the assembly here. Here's the cart. Then you've got the decaling. And I've got a sprue map here. Warranty. Limited. We guarantee its products against defects due to faulty workmanship materials for 90 days from the date of purchase. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm out of the warranty period. So, that's it. That's the next project. And I will be probably doing another new project video next week. I think working on 2 or 3 kits at the same time and alternating between the 2 of them has been working pretty good, so I'm probably going to continue that. So let's see what develops here. First decision I've got to make is what I'm going to do about the radome and the nose here. Now, they actually give you parts to do the radar antenna and everything like that, and they say that the radome can be a press fit. You can just put it on and off if you want to display it. So I suppose before deciding whether I'm going to have the nose removable, is, as you can see, it does actually press fit on there pretty good. All along here it fits good, all along the top. But you can see these two little keyed bits here stand a little bit proud. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little gentle sanding or filing on here. And if I can get that to be a good fit, then I'll assemble the antenna parts and see how they look. If they look decent, you know what? I'll have the nose removable. It seems to fit on there pretty good. I think the filing was successful. Certainly those little tabs don't stand proud anymore. So I don't think that's going to keep me from, having the nose removable so we can show off the radar. Next step, I think, will be I'll assemble the radar and see if it's something I actually want to show off. If it looks like crap, we'll just glue the nose on. Well, it'll all be good. This is the air intake that goes in the chin. And as you can see, it has a very prominent lug running inside it there. And basically that's for the pin and the receptacle in order to hold this together. And this is not something I need. So I think I'm going to grind that out. It doesn't need to be there. And I think it detracts from the smooth opening that it should be. In this view, you can see that I've removed half of it already. And I think it does improve the way it looks. Not looking for contest winners here, but really those don't need to be in there. Before gluing the air intake halves together, I just slopped some black paint in here. And I figure when I paint the whole thing, I'll end up getting a little bit of silver in the very front of the air inlet, and that will be fine because it will basically fade from silver down into black, and I don't really want to be looking that far down into this anyway. This is the floor of the cockpit, and this will give you some idea how easy it is to get this flash off. It just literally, just give it a fold and it comes off. So it's not the huge big deal that it seems at first. I mean, and 9 times out of 10, you'd be cleaning up all around the edges of your part anyway. So it's just more of a comic effect than any real inconvenience, really, when you come down to it. So there's our cockpit floor all cleaned up, and it did not take that much effort. And then here's basically the base of the pilot's seat. And as you can see, there's some rudimentary circles and things on here. I think I might let my fingers do some wandering and see if I can find some decent pictures of these side consoles. I think I just might scratch build some stuff for that. I'm not worried about this great big huge dip, because if we put it on, you can see that the side of the cockpit's basically going to be curving over that. We're not really going to see that too much, so I don't think it's worth the effort. Am I the only one that thinks this part looks an awful lot like Captain Kirk's command chair from the Enterprise? Now in the instructions they tell you to use part number 11, which is a very plain seat. And no mention is made of using that pilot figure at all. And we'll take a close look at that pilot figure and you'll see why it's a little bit of a conundrum and a little bit of a decision point here. The flash on this guy is so bad, it almost seems a shame to break it free. However, if we take a look at it, you can see that the empty seat and that our pilot with a seat are basically intended to be direct replacements for each other. There's even a lug at the back of this that would set it down the same way. There does seem to be quite a bit of detail on them once you chisel all this stuff off. I'm not usually a fan of using pilot figures, but I don't know, I might use this guy because the seat is pretty plain otherwise. I don't know. Maybe I'll clean it up and just see. Or maybe I'll just keep him out just as an example. He is pretty hilarious, that's for sure. Don't know how accurate the colors are for the radar dish. I'm pretty sure the radar dish isn't very accurate anyway. However, it does look nice in there, so I think I'll go with those colors. Basically, I used a zinc chromate for the backing, and of course, after everything's all painted, the radome will be given a coat of black paint. And if I just pop this like this, you can see how these parts basically relate to each other. You can see how the duct thins out and flattens out as it goes over where the front landing gear is. For the cockpit, I'm probably going to do a little bit of thinking over the next few days on this. More than likely, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scratch build some details in there, probably better than anything that comes in the kit. I'm really not enthusiastic about using Flash Gordon here. Although the Flash is not the main reason I don't want to use them. I'm just not real keen on using them. And the details on the seat don't look that great anyway. So there's other things I gotta do. So I think I'm gonna wrap up this episode right here. So thanks for watching, and until next time, just keep on modeling.
Oh, they've encased him in carbonite. He should be quite well protected.